Okay, moving on. Question 7. So question 7 is about inventory. And you're going to have to, I don't know how many of you have actually watched those videos that I made that explains this stuff, but you're going to have to watch the videos probably to understand what this is talking about. So inventory. So we are selling pet beds, and we sell each one of them for $150. And we've got, let's see, we're planning on selling 900 units in March. No, I'm sorry, 1,200 units in March and 900 units in April. Okay, and each unit sells for $150. And our ending inventory is that 30%, we have to have 30% of next month's sales, right? So ending inventory, %30 of next month's sales, right? So if they're ending March, right, they have to have enough on hand to be able to have at least some to be able to sell in April, right? They can't just completely empty their shelves, right? So at the end of March, they got to have 30% of April's sales on hand, right? And then the cost of the inventory is $50 per unit. There we go. Now, why did that show up as $1? Because what happened was I put the number 50 in there and it took it as a percent because my prior row had percentage as its format. So what I'm going to have to do now is, now that I've formatted this as dollars, I'm going to have to go in and put in 50. And the reason that it came in as $1 is because I've got this thing set up as no decimals, and so it rounded up from 50 cents to $1. So anyway, sometimes you have to mess around with this to get it to say what you want it to. All right. So again, now we've got all our information in here. Let's read it through again. Garfield Corporation expects to sell 1,200 units of its pet beds in March and 900 units in April. Each unit sells for $150. Our ending inventory policy is 30% of the next month's sales, and we pay its suppliers $50 per unit. Okay, so one of the things, right, that's challenging about this class and about all of your, classes as you start moving up into the upper levels is sometimes you're given information that you don't need. Okay? We are asked for our cost of our budgeted purchases. The fact that the price is $150 per unit is irrelevant. Okay, all we care about is how much we are actually going to have to spend to buy these things. Right? And so in March, right, we have to figure out how much we needed to buy. How much did we need to buy? Now, here's what's going on in March. In March, we had some inventory on hand, right? We began the month of March with some inventory that we already had on hand, and that was 30% of 1,200. 30% of what we sold, we already had waiting to be sold. And then we sold our 1,200 units. And then we also needed to keep 30% of April's planned sales. So this is 230 units in stock for April. Okay, so how much did we actually need to buy? Well, we needed to buy the 1,200. We need to buy what we sold, what we need to have on hand, minus what we started with, right? So we needed to buy the amount that we sold plus what we needed to have on hand for next month minus what we started with. What we sold plus what we needed to have on hand minus what we started with, because we didn't need to buy that 360 that we started with. Okay, 1,110 units. How much did it cost us? Well, that's that amount that we needed to buy times the cost of the inventory. 55,500. Okay, so that's how you do those. On to the next. Okay, the next one is another inventory question. And here's how I suggest that you do this, right? With inventory questions, right, there's actually, there's a lot of sort of analyses that we do in these finance and accounting classes that should be set up in the way that I'm going to show you. Okay, so there's a lot of different things. Like, for instance, the retained earnings statement. Remember that from financial accounting? You know, you start with an amount, you add to it, you got to figure out how much you subtracted from it, right? So here's what I suggest you do, okay? For the inventory questions, and then for anything else that's like this, you've got 4 columns that they're giving you. I suggest that you make those columns into rows. Okay, so the rows should be beginning. Okay. What you made or what you added. What you used. What you ended with. Right. So this is, you're going to find numerous examples of this kind of an analysis. Okay. So here we have beginning inventory. Here's what you produced. Here's what you got rid of. And here's your ending inventory. So in this case, right, our beginning inventory, right, what you added, which is our production, what you used, which is what we sold, and then what we ended with, which is ending inventory. Okay. And now you're given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 examples where you have to fill out, and it's hard for me to tell which ones are empty here, right? But the way that the math works, you start with your beginning inventory, you add what you made, you subtract what you used, and that equals your ending inventory. Right? So what you started plus what you added minus what you used equals ending. Now, let me lay that out, I think, in a row so that you can kind of see how the equation works. Actually, I'll take that out. That's probably not all that clear. So the beginning plus production minus sales equals ending. Okay. Now for this one, honestly, I don't mind if you do this by hand. Okay, it's probably easier that way. You can do it in Excel. I can do it in Excel. In this top line, so these are the different lines or the different examples, and each line has one item that you need to solve for. And so this is just a simple algebra question, right? So we have beginning inventory of 100 for my top line. We have ending inventory of 75. We have sales of 525, and we need to solve for the production. Right, so this is what we're solving for here. Right, so if beginning plus production minus sales equals ending, if we want to solve for production, so the production is going to be equal to ending minus beginning plus sales, I think. All right, so then you just, production is going to be equal to ending minus beginning plus sales, 500. Okay, and there it is. And that's how you do that. Very simple. It's just math. It's just 8th grade algebra. Okay, on to number 9. Okay, number 9, another inventory question, right? So this is another inventory question. So here's our setup. I'm going to read it all the way through and then show you how to set it up. So Shamrock Shades operates in mall kiosks throughout the southwestern United States. They purchase sunglasses from bulk discounters and sell the sunglasses in the mall kiosks. We are in the process of budgeting for the coming year and has projected sales of $440 for January, $520 for February, $680 for March, and $720 for April. We need to have 45% of the following month's cost of goods sold in our inventory. And cost of goods sold is 35% of sales. So as always, I put the sort of small assumptions up at the top. So we have our, let's see, ending inventory needs is 45% of following month's cost of goods sold. And our cost of goods sold is 35% of sales. Okay. And then we have our sales data, our sales revenues for January through April. Come on. There we go. All right. And so we've got 440 for January and 520 for February and 680 for March and 720 for April. Make those into dollar signs so that we can remember what we're looking at. Make sure that we have the right number of zeros is always my failure. There they are. Okay, so we need to figure out how much we need to purchase. And what we need to purchase, just like before, right? We have our beginning inventory. So we're going to set this up the same way. In this case, though, we're not producing. What we add or purchase in this case, right? What we use, or sell in this case, and then our ending inventory. And again, just like before, our beginning inventory plus what we use, so we'll say plus purchases this time, minus sales is going to be our ending inventory. Oops, I did that the wrong place. Sorry about that. So the beginning inventory plus our purchases minus our sales is going to give us our ending inventory. So we use the same information, right? Now, the only twist here is that we're defining our inventory in terms of the cost of goods sold. So let's first figure out the cost of goods sold, which is going to be 35% of sales for each month. I'm going to make that an absolute cell reference so that I can, oops, I forgot to multiply. 35% of sales. There we go. It shows up as a percentage, but that's not a problem. We'll just take and make it a dollar sign, get rid of those zeros, make sure that it makes sense. It does. I look at this number, it's 150, 440, so that's 35%, so that's good. All right, so now we can go ahead and pull that all the way out. So now this is our cost of goods sold. Okay. Now each month we have to begin with how much? 45% of that month's cost of good, right? If we have ending inventory, right, our beginning inventory is going to be last month's ending inventory, right? Okay, so our beginning inventory is last month's ending inventory. So in January, our beginning inventory has got to be 45% of January's cost of goods sold. That's 45% of January's cost of goods sold. I don't know what I just did there. Sorry about that. There we go. So it's 69.3. And what we have to purchase, we don't know. We have to solve for this, right? So let's highlight that, just like we did above, right? What we sold is the cost of goods sold, right? That's the value of the inventory that we actually sold. So we just pick that up from above. And our ending inventory has to be 45% of next month's cost of goods sold. 45% of next month's cost of goods sold. Okay, that's January. Let's do it again. In February, right, you can either do as we did in January and take that 45%, or you can just pick it up from the ending inventory from last month. Okay, we again need to calculate our purchases, and what we sold was that $182,000 worth of inventory. And then our ending inventory for February has to be 45% of March's cost of goods sold. And we repeat, right? At the beginning of March, we start with what we ended February with. We have to figure out what we're purchasing. What we're selling is going to be equal to our cost of goods sold for March. And what we are have to have for ending inventory is going to be the same, 45% of April's cost of goods sold. Now we have everything we need. Okay. And so again, just as we did up here, right? If the beginning inventory plus the purchases minus the sales equals the ending inventory, then our purchases have to equal our ending inventory minus the beginning inventory plus sales. Right? So purchases here, I'm going to calculate it down here. It's our ending inventory minus beginning inventory plus sales. 166.6, which is right here. So that's correct. There it is. Okay, moving on. Number 10. We're getting to the end. Okay, number 10. We have a little bit more data here. So kind of giving it a quick overview. We're given a whole bunch of information, and we got to figure out what our purchases are going to be. And then we have to make an income statement. So we have sales, 4 months of sales. We have cost of goods sold at 25%. We need to have, just like before, we need to have 35% of the following month's cost of goods sold. And here's all our operating expenses per month. These are our fixed expenses. Well, they're not all fixed. One of them is variable. So let's go ahead and figure out our purchases first. So we do that precisely like we did the last one. So we've got 4 months of sales. We've got cost of goods sold is 25% of sales, and ending inventory has to be 35% of the following month's cost of goods sold. Okay, and then we have our sales data for April, May, June, and July. And let's see, they're 250 and 220 and 340 and 120. Okay. Pick up the formatting, apply it here. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do, just like we did above, first thing we need to do is calculate our cost of goods sold, which is 25% of sales. There it is. Oh, what just happened? What happened was I didn't make my 25% an absolute cell reference, right? So if I go back to this first calculation and just enter the B134 as an absolute cell reference, then I can go ahead and pull that out. There we go. All right. So then, right? Let's go ahead and, since we are asked first to do our cost of budgeted purchases, let's just set it up like we did before. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is just copy this, put it down here. Okay. I'm going to, let's see, our beginning inventory is last month's ending inventory, which is 35% of our cost of goods sold. 35%. I'm going to make this an absolute cell reference because I'm getting lazy about repeating myself. And once again, I forgot to multiply. You can see I'm getting a little bleary-eyed here. There we go. Came in as a percent. That's okay. We turn it into a dollar. Get rid of those decimals and it makes sense. So let's go ahead and copy that over. Right, our purchases, we're going to calculate. What we sold is our cost of goods sold for that month. And then our ending inventory is going to be 35% of next month's cost of goods sold. Remembering this time to make it an absolute cell reference. Copy that one out. Okay, we only are able to do this through June. And so now, just like above, right, if the beginning plus the purchases minus the sales equal ending, then our purchases are going to be ending inventory minus the beginning inventory plus sales. So our purchases are going to be ending inventory minus beginning inventory plus sales. $59,875, which is correct. So that's beautiful. All right, so that's the first piece. The second piece is we need to make an income statement, not a contribution income statement. Okay, and so we've got to remember what an income statement is made up of. So it's going to be revenues minus cost of goods sold, gives us our gross margin, minus operating expenses, gives us our net income. Now, let's see if they have you break out. The thing is that some of these operating expenses are going to be variable. Selling and administrative, that's what they're calling them. So let's figure out our operating expenses. Okay. Our operating expenses are going to be equal to, okay, I'm just going to plug these numbers in. I know, I tell you never to do that. Okay, it's 7% of sales plus all these fixed expenses, right? So that's what this is. Okay, equals 0.07 times sales plus, and then you just plug these in, 33,000 plus 6,000 plus 1,200 plus 210 plus 310. 58,220. There's this number here, right? 58,220. We can go ahead and now sort of copy out all our cell references. So it's our revenue minus the cost of goods sold. We use cell references here. Do this little calculation. Revenue minus cost of goods sold. Subtract out, that gives us our gross margin. Subtract out our operating expenses, and that gives us our profit. Okay, you can go ahead and just copy that whole column out, and that'll give you the answer. And again, when you see these hash marks, it's just because the column's not wide enough. And so there it is. All these numbers are right, so that was done. So that's how you do number 10. That's how you do this whole homework. It's just a matter of practice. Okay, so have at it.